Hello, my name is Brian, and welcome to the Yoga Hub podcast. For the next 2 episodes of this podcast, we wanted to introduce you a little bit more to the yoga teacher trainings that we run at our studios. We currently run part-time courses which run over 6 months. They begin in February and September. And we also run a summer intensive, which runs over 3 weeks in August. We do these trainings at our Blackrock studio, our Camden Street studio, and also in Castleknock. So I am here today with Suzanne McGill and Shane Lennon. Shane is one of the co-leads of our Blackrock training. Suzanne and myself lead the Camden Street training. And for this episode, we kind of wanted to just give you guys a little bit more background to us and how we approach these trainings. So to begin, Suzanne, do you mind letting us know, in as much or as little detail as you would care to share, about how you got into yoga?
So I got into yoga when I was a teenager. I started going to Ashtanga when I was about 16, under the positive influence of my mother. And I kind of went in and out of it throughout college. And when I finished college, I really wanted to find a place to practice regularly. And I just put in yoga studio in Dublin, and yogahub came up on the Google search. So this is when I was about 24. And I went to a class in yogahub with my mum the first time, actually. And I just absolutely fell in love with the studio. And I've just kind of lived here ever since. And I started practicing regularly then. I started coming about once a week to yogahub. And yeah, I've just kind of continued my practice since that point.
Very nice. We're very lucky that the Google search brought us up first and that you found your way to us for sure. Shane, how about you?
Thanks, Brian. So I was introduced to yoga through drama school. It was part of the movement practice in drama school. And when I was being taught it was being taught by a movement teacher. So I had a bit of movement background from it. But I didn't like yoga. It wasn't for me. At the time, nobody could really explain to me what yoga was. And I always asked the why. I need to know the why. That's just my way of thinking. So at that time, I didn't really resonate too much with it. Then I went over to London for a couple of years, and I went to a studio in London. I had a sore back, and I thought that yoga was going to help my sore back. So I went to a studio. Going to go a little sidebar. That was the craziest studio I've ever been to. I went in, and the teacher said, "You're new, get down to the back." So I went down to the back of the class, and then it was like, you've been here a while, you can come forward. And my brain went, I'm getting up to the top of this room. And that's what got me in. And I stayed there, and I got up to the top of the class. I was the best boy. And then I moved back from London. And again, I Google searched to see where could I find some yoga in Dublin. Yoga Hub came up, and I came in and started practicing here. And again, I fell in love with the studio as well. A really nice vibe in the studio. It was well looked after. And I started practicing here, and I've been practicing here ever since. Yeah, did my training here. Yep.
Yeah. And for myself, so I started practicing yoga quite a while ago now. And I was living in Australia, and I just happened to move into a house that was on the same road as a yoga studio. So I just said I would go down and give it a go. And I was terrible. Like, I was absolutely terrible. Like, if you picture the most stiff, inflexible, unmobile person you could imagine, I would guess that I was a little bit worse than that person. But even though I struggled with basically every single thing that was in this class, something about it I just really, really enjoyed. And I actually remember, because my older sister lived in Australia at the time as well, and I remember leaving, so she'd come to the class with me, and I remember leaving the class and turning to her and saying, I think I might do this for like forever. And lo and behold, here I am, still going. And I basically just never stopped going. When I moved back to Dublin, I came across the Yoga Hub. I don't know if it was through a Google search, but maybe I'll just say it was through a Google search. That seems to be how everyone finds us, maybe. Then after a year or so being back in Dublin, I wanted to go traveling. I went to India, and just again, out of curiosity, I did a teacher training course. And yeah, kind of just continued from there. But yeah, I have that really clear memory of leaving like one of my first yoga classes and just feeling like an inch taller, but also like an inch, I don't know if this would be measured in inches, like just much lighter. And there was just something about that feeling that that kept drawing me back. So I'd be curious for you guys. I know, Shane, you were saying that you weren't like actually necessarily a fan of yoga at the beginning, but when you did kind of start to get the feel for it, what was it that was drawing you in?
So it was hot yoga that I was initially introduced into. That's when I really felt like I was getting bang for my buck in a hot yoga class, coming from a gym background, and I would have been quite similar to you, and I would have been very stiff, very immobile. So I found I was getting more from a hot class. So that's what kind of got me in. And then I would just get this feeling. I'd come out of the hot class just like light, floating out the door, felt amazing. And that's what kind of got me going. And then I didn't like regular yoga for a long time. I just found it boring, too slow, wasn't really for me. And then I found a teacher that I resonated. You know, once I find if you find a teacher that you can resonate with, then it starts to change a little bit. And again, it just made me feel a lot better. So the main thing for me was my brain quieting down. Yeah, that was the big one. And I just kind of didn't realize that that's what yoga was for at the time. I just thought it was a good old stretch, and yeah, and then I just started to realize that there was a pattern of quietness in my head after classes.
Sounds nice.
It is.
And you, Suzanne, what was it that kind of caught you about the practice?
Like I said, I started with Ashtanga when I was 16, and I was very like competitive. I was into all sorts of movement practices. I did a lot of gymnastics as a kid, and I think there was a lot of similarities between it. So I think that was what really hooked me in at the start. And then when I was going back during college, I actually went to gym classes a lot, and I really loved them. I really loved attending yoga in the gym as well. And like that, it was kind of like the only time during the week when I would leave something and feel so much better for doing it. And I think it like planted a seed in me to be like, I need to know more about this. Like, what is going on about this practice that makes me feel so good? Just from going to a class and like moving and breathing and being in a group as well. I think I really benefited from it at the time. And yeah, and then of course I found yogahub, and it was just sweet sailing from there.
I think it's a nice point, because I think it's one of the like sneaky benefits of yoga to a certain degree, that like for something that's such a personal practice, one of the nicest things we get from it is that sense of community. And it was one of the things that drew me in as well, because I was never really like a gym person. I always played team sports as a kid, and the gym just never really like, I don't know, just never really did it for me that much. So I felt when I went to a yoga class, it was like physical, but also kind of felt like, not that everybody's always doing the exact same thing, but roughly we're all going through the same thing. And I can kind of feel like you're all on the same team. You know what I mean? Like, and you're all kind of like working towards something similar. And I think, you know, if I was to be so bold as to be very complimentary of where we are at the Yoga Hub, I think that's one thing that's quite special about this place, is like the community that's around it, and the nice, like, supportive people that you meet. And you know, from being like a teacher for almost like 10 years now, it's not what I would have anticipated. One of like the biggest benefits I would have got from teaching yoga is I just making like really nice friends. Yep. And a lot of like the really good friends that I've made as I've gotten a bit older in life has been people that I've met through yoga and through the Yoga Hub, which is a really like lovely thing. Yeah. So I'm going to guess all of our answers might be similar-ish when it comes to this. But when you decided to take a yoga training, so it's or a yoga teacher training, and you guys are both, or kind of nice that you guys have both actually done the training here. What was the motivation? Like, what was it that made you decide to take that next step from just being a dedicated student to taking on a teacher training? Suzanne?
Yeah, so I did my 200-hour training here, did the summer intensive course. I think it was 2016. And at the time, I had finished college the year before, and I had actually signed up to do a master's in business administration the following September. So I just did it to like deepen my practice. I had no kind of desire to actually teach. It was kind of like I was going to do this, deepen my practice, understand more about yoga, and then go off and do my master's and never really like approach yoga again as a career. But I saw the advertisement for the yoga teacher training, the summer course, and I just so happened to be free, and I just kind of jumped at it. I was like, why not? And it was just the most transformative 4 weeks of my life. I made some really beautiful friends. It was here in Camden, and the weather was really nice that summer. We got to go out to the Ivy Gardens a good bit to do teaching practice. And as soon as I finished it, I just decided this is really what I want to do. This is really calling me. And I postponed that master's. I said I'll do it the following year, but of course it never actually came to fruition. And yeah, and I was really lucky in the sense of being in the studio so much that summer. I got to talk to Matt, the owner, a lot. He was here quite a lot that year, and he actually gave me the opportunity to cover, I think it was a Friday evening hot class one time, and I got on the cover list, and from there I just kind of kept taking cover and gradually got more classes, and it's just been a really, really nice progression from that stage of being on the training to being a teacher.
Shane, your motivation?
I was standing in the corridor one day looking at the sign on the notice board, and Susie walked past me and said, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Just looking at the teacher training sign." She's like, "Are you interested?" And I went, "No, I'm not sure. I was kind of thinking about it." And the next day I got an email from Susie saying, "Here's the details for the teacher training." And I just bit the bullet, and I was like, "Yeah, why not?" And it was more for my own understanding of the practice. I mean, maybe in the back of my head I thought I might be able to do this. And then during the training, the first time I stood up to teach, I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this. And coming from an acting background, people who said, oh, it'd be easy for you to stand up in front of people. But when you're doing it from an acting perspective, you're doing it as somebody else. Whereas this was like very, very open for me. Like I was like, right, okay, it's me standing up here in front of people, and I felt very vulnerable, and I actually didn't enjoy it at the beginning. And then as we moved towards the end of the course and I felt a little bit more prepared, I started to enjoy it a little bit more. And yeah, luckily enough, I started teaching straight away. I didn't sleep for like 3 days before my first class because I was so rattled. But then I taught my first one, got the first one out of the way, and it's just built from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the same as you guys. When I did my first training, there was no intention of teaching. I don't even think it was something that would have ever entered my head. I was going traveling. I was going to India, like anyways, and I'd been practicing a lot of yoga, and I wanted just to learn more. Similar to what you were saying, Susie, I was like, this thing makes me feel really nice. Why? Or just to know more about that why. And it felt for me at that time like I only really had the choice of either doing a retreat type thing where it would be like a class in the morning and then like a trip to go see dolphins and like then massage and all this other stuff, or was it teacher training? And the retreat thing sounded nice but wasn't really what I was after, so my only other option really was just to do the training. So I did like a month intensive training over in Goa, and it was intense. Like we were practicing from like 6 in the morning till 10 o'clock in the evening. We used to do these like 2-hour Ashtanga practices. It must have been just like some kind of weird punishment thing. These like 2-hour Ashtanga practices at 3 o'clock in the day in Goa in February, which is like 40 degrees and like ridiculous humidity, and but anyways, made it to the end in one piece somewhat. And again, no real intention of teaching, but I got asked to stay on and assist with the next training that was happening, which was a really good experience. It kind of gave me a bit more I guess background insight into the process of teaching. We were doing a lot of adjusting, and we got like a bit more information on the sequences and all these kind of stuff. But then I moved home. I came home after traveling, and my intention was to be home for a few months. I was going to go to New Zealand. I had an uncle in New Zealand. And just coincidentally, I bumped into a girl who I used to go to school with on a night out. So for me, like a real like kind of sliding doors moment. And we were chatting. I was saying that I've gotten into yoga and all this sort of stuff. And she was like, oh, my girlfriend she was like managing the Camden Street studio, but not the yoga side of things. She was like managing like reception and logistics and all that sort of stuff. She was like, you should give her a shout, because if you work for the yogahub, you get free classes. I was like, deadly. So I gave her a shout, started just doing like the odd reception shift. And then one of the other girls who's now gone on to be a really good friend of mine, Katie Koldrick, who was managing the teachers, she just kept at me being like, when are you going to teach? When are you going to teach? When are you going to teach? I didn't want to teach, but I think they wanted like a male teacher. There was some male teachers, but not as many. So I think they were like keen on like more male teachers. And honestly, to kind of just like shut her up, for want of a better word. I was like, fine, I'll do like a trial class. And it went well, and got given a class, and then it just like, here I am nearly 10 years later talking on a podcast about teaching yoga. Like, definitely wasn't part of the plan, but like, there you go. So yeah, it's a crack. So for you guys, how do you feel? How was the kind of jump? Because I think you guys both got into teaching relatively quickly after the training. So I had like a bit of time in between. But how did you feel? How did you find the jump from teacher training to teaching? Yeah, did you feel like prepared? Was it a bit of a disaster at the beginning, or like how was it for you? Suzanne, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I actually took a little bit of a break after the teacher training before doing some teaching, but I did feel I had a bit more confidence because I did the intensive course, and we did so many days of back-to-back teaching practices, especially towards the end of the training. So by the end of the course, I did feel like I really wanted to go out and teach, and I had that confidence. I started practicing on friends and family, and I did keep coming to yogahub as a student, which I think really helped to kind of stay in that student mindset. And I'd bring a little notebook and make notes of cues and borrow sequences and and then, yeah, I think because I was coming to the studio so much and the teachers got to know me a little bit better, that opportunity did open up then when they were looking for more cover teachers. And of course, I was really nervous at first, and I was terrified of leaving my mat. But with a little bit of encouragement, especially within the yogahub team, everyone here is just so nice and encouraging and willing to help you. And all the teachers were really willing to help. And the trainers as well were all teaching at the same time. So I always felt like I was supported, and feedback was there if I wanted feedback as well. So
nice. I'd imagine it must be really nice to be able to teach at the same place where you did your training, like that little, like almost graduating in a sense. And yeah, did you find it like, I guess, were you more or less nervous teaching because you were familiar with the space?
Yeah, it's hard to know. I think I did felt very at home here, and I did feel comfortable, and I was used to the space. There was a little bit of like, because sometimes you'd end up teaching people who would be in the same class as you for a long time, especially because I used to come to the lunchtime classes a lot. And then one day I was like teaching this room of people that I used to always practice beside. So I felt like a little bit of pressure in that sense, but they were all so nice. They were really kind about it. So yeah.
Shane, how did you find the jump from trainee to teacher?
As I said, I was awake for 3 days before the first class. I just kept waking up, running sequence in my head, all of that kind of stuff. What if I forget it? All of the stuff that goes on in your head when you teach your first class. And I remember having a chat with you in the corridor one day because I felt like it was going well, but you reminded me that it's not always going to go well. There is going to be moments where you're going to have little dips of like, it's going to be a little roller coaster journey of some days. And even now, some days I'm like, am I a terrible yoga teacher? Like, do I know what I'm doing? Oh my God. Like, and it's just this wave up and down. But there is plenty of support from the people around the studio to know, like, and when you say these things out loud, everybody's like, yep, and even your heads are nodding there as I say it. So, but I did feel like I was supported. And then I started to find my own voice as a teacher, because for a while you're kind of giving the cues that you hear in the class, and then you're like, well, this feels a bit more interesting to me. But that took probably 2 years before I was able to kind of go, oh, I can trust myself now as a teacher. But that came from teaching lots and lots of classes. Like when I first started teaching, I just went in and jumped in and covered as much as I could, like cover as much as I could, get the reps in. And that's how I felt I started to progress as a teacher. Yeah. Yeah.
Great. And I have to say, from I also do some behind the management work here at the Yoga as well. So I see lots of like our feedback and all this other stuff coming in. I think it's lovely that like two of our most like well received and popular teachers are two people that have come through our training course. I think it's a lot down to like the individuals, but hopefully it says something about the training course as well. And we're very lucky now that they've both graduated onto or progressed onto actually teaching on our training courses, which is a really like lovely thing. So question for both of you guys, maybe I'll start with Shane this time. How do you find teaching on the teacher training courses here, and maybe what's your favorite thing about it?
I love teaching on teacher trainings. That is where I wanted to progress to when I started teaching. I knew that was where I wanted to go with it. And the reason I love it is classes are great and people are in to do the yoga, but on the training, people are really there to learn. And that's what really like lights me up inside. I'm like, oh yeah, I get so excited. Even now on the training, I'm like, right, go on, take a break, because I get so excited about it and I really want to share it. And I think it's because it has helped me in my own life so much that's why I try to share it with as much people as I can. So that's the part of being on the training that I love.
Suzanne?
Yeah, I feel pretty much the same way as Shane. I've never thought I'd work in a job or a role that I'd be so in love with it. Like, I absolutely love coming in here at the weekends and being with the trainees, or coming in the summer and being with the trainees. And again, because I found so much benefit from doing the course myself, it feels really nice to kind of pass that on and being able to share that with others. And just when I started doing the training, like I just kind of watched other trainers. I would just sit in and watch them, and I would just be like, this is really what I want to do. Like, I just be in awe, really. This is something I really want to do. And I just feel so blessed that I get to do this and to do it with like lovely people like Brian and Shane. I really feel like we pull together really well as a team, and all the other trainers in yogahub as well. So it's really nice to be a part of such a good team as well.
Yeah. I think for any teacher who gets the opportunity to do it, like to be able to share things in more detail with people who are like keenly interested, which you have to assume that most people at time to do with teacher training are pretty interested. It's lovely. Like, it's really lovely. And I also always like to say when we do our trainings that like the trainings kind of become like a big group project, because you have the time and the space to go into things in more detail. You also hear a lot more from the people that you're with around, what they find useful, what they find challenging, what they find interesting. And there's a beautiful, like kind of group learning that gets fostered through that. And I learn so much in every training that I do, because you're like learning from the people that you're with and stuff. So it's a really, really lovely thing. But also I'd say, as I've done more of the trainings, what I've come to enjoy more and more is, again, that kind of like community that builds around it. And I'm sure it's the same for you guys. Like, I've started to notice that you go into the trainings on the first day and the studio is like no noise at all. You know what I mean? Like, you could like hear a pin drop, because everyone's nervous and a little bit shy, and and then we have a group now that are almost at the end. They're kind of coming towards the end. And the last day I was with them, coming into the studio, it's like going into like a secondary school, like before like class starts. It's noise and people talking and laughing and making plans and all this sort of stuff. And it's a really beautiful thing. Like, I don't think it's the main reason anyone should do a yoga teacher training, to make friends. But it's a really beautiful way to make friends with people who are interested in similar things. And it's really special. So that's like, the more I've done these trainings, that's kind of become the thing that I think I enjoy the most. Cool. Should we leave it there?
Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed getting to know our amazing teachers just a little bit better. And in the next episode, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the most frequently asked questions we get related to our teacher trainings. So thank you very much for taking the time to listen. Hope you enjoyed.